all, welcome back. Today we are going to understand what is an Azure data center, region and geography. So if you remember in our previous videos, we have created some of the Azure resources, one of them being a virtual machine. You must be wondering, where is the hardware associated with that virtual machine residing on Azure? Generally, we keep saying that it resides on Azure data center. So, can you select which data center exactly you want to pick up while creating an Azure resource? Let us try and understand. What is an Azure data center? Microsoft Azure is made up of a lot of Azure data centers located across the globe. Given the amount of infrastructure security associated with a data center, we really do not know the number of data centers or the exact location of these. However, a data center can be assumed to be a building, and inside a building you have multiple containers or multiple racks, and in each of this rack you are filled with servers, especially for compute storage and networking. Each of these containers have their own powering and cooling systems. They are equipped by several thousands of compute storage and networking servers, and also they are very well equipped to be migrating all workloads to a different data center in case of any outages or failure of the data center itself. Such is an intelligent setup of a data center on the Azure. Azure runs on the concept of virtualization and hypervisor at a very massive scale, which is very difficult to achieve on a private network or using any private cloud providers. Let us say you are creating Azure resources, maybe a virtual machine or a SQL Server database. You are actually using physical hardware in one of these data centers, but these data centers are not exposed to the users directly. If you remember the wizard of creating a virtual machine, nowhere did we select the data center. Rather, we had to select a region. So in that case, we can say that Azure organizes the data centers in regions. At the time of creation of this video, we have got 58 regions spread across 140 countries located around the globe. And every data center that Microsoft builds, it brings in the sustainability of the environment, which means that it employs eco-friendly mechanisms of power and cooling, like employing renewable energy and ensuring that there is an optimized airflow. And Microsoft has committed to a very ambitious goal of being carbon negative by 2030. I've given a link here so that you can read about it in detail, but the whole idea is that Microsoft commits to a sustainable future while building each of these data centers. So after understanding data center, the next important thing that you have to understand is a region. A region is nothing but it is a geographical area on the globe which is containing one or multiple data centers which are co-located, and they are all networked together with a low latency network. So whenever you're creating a resource on Azure, be it a SQL Server database, a virtual machine or even an app service, you actually have to specify which region you want to create your resources. You do not have control of selecting the data center within the region because Azure intelligently picks up the available data center based on the massive scale of Fabric controller, but then you have only to choose the Azure region for the particular resource that you're creating. So most of the resources other than the global resources like Azure Active Directory, Traffic Manager and DNS, you have to specify the region when you're creating the resources. The number of regions that Azure supports is much higher than any other cloud provider. The global reach with local presence is much higher. If you've seen in the previous slide that Azure currently, while making this video, supports 58 regions with 140 countries that it is spread across. In addition, there are some special Azure regions like US government cloud, China, Germany clouds, etc. So these specialized regions are when you're building applications for compliance or legal purposes. Let us say that you're building an application for a US government agency who is not comfortable for their data to be residing on a public cloud. Rather, the compliance laws do not allow the data to be residing in a public cloud. So in such scenario, you select US government cloud when you're creating your Azure resources. Similarly, with China, there is a partnership between China, a company called 21VNet, and Microsoft, where Microsoft is not directly maintaining the data centers, but this particular company is. So they are all with respect to the compliance laws of a government or of a particular region that Azure supports in multiple ways. And again, all these data centers and Azure regions are sustainable and eco-friendly, built employing the eco-friendly mechanisms to ensure sustainability of the climate. So in short, Azure allows us to scale globally, which means that we are able to reach more locations faster with a greater performance and reliability of the vast infrastructure across the globe. And we are able to keep the data secure as well as compliant, abiding to the local laws of the government, and as well as able to promote sustainability with reduced carbon footprint with environment friendly data centers. So while making this video, Azure has close to 58 regions worldwide, and this is available in 140 countries. So if you see here, there are a lot of regions: West US, West Central US. In US itself, there looks to be a beehive regions, and Europe as well as Asia. There are little less regions in Africa and in South America. So the next important term here is a geography that you need to be really aware, because a region is able to identify the location of your resource. But what does geography specify in that case? So every geography has got their own geopolitical boundaries, which means that they have their own governments and the rules of their particular government. For example, the GDPR rule of Europe states that none of the data from Europe should be saved on any clouds outside their geographical boundaries, which means that, let us say hypothetically, if a region outside Europe is nearer or cheaper, but still you will have to select a region within the geographical boundaries of Europe, which means that geography is one or more regions together, but at a given point of time, one region is part of only one geography. For example, if East US falls under the America geography, then at no point of time East US can fall under European geography. When you're creating Azure resources, you really cannot select a geography, but you can select a region only. But at the same time, based on the data residency, sovereignty and compliance boundaries of a given government or a given geography, you can employ some Azure policies so that all the resources within that subscription are only created in a given region. The geographies are fault tolerant to be able to withstand complete region failure. There is a concept of region peering, which means that if one region fails, then the other region takes over, and this happens through a dedicated high capacity networking infrastructure within the regions of a given geography. Primarily, we have four geographies: Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Middle East and Africa, which means that all the above 58 regions are divided in these four geographies. At a given point of time, please remember that you will never be able to select a geography, neither you will be able to select a data center. Geography is at the highest hierarchy. Within the geography, you have multiple regions, and within each of the region, you have multiple data centers. Which means that in short, when you're creating Azure resources, you have to specify only an Azure region. Then in that case, what are the different factors that you have to consider for choosing an Azure region? The first one is data residency and sovereignty, which means that you have to ensure that you're following the government laws for creating the Azure resources, especially when you're building applications for these government agencies. The service availability. As I was mentioning to you, not all Azure services are available in all the Azure regions. Geographic proximity and latency. Hypothetically, let us assume that you're building an application for a US region and most of your customers are in the eastern part of the US. So obviously you will choose a region which is nearer to the East US. Pricing. This is also a very important factor because sometimes the same Azure resource is priced differently between different regions. Probably because the hardware vendors of that particular region have their different rates, uh, other taxations of the government, etc., could impact the pricing as well. So let us say that the price of a virtual machine of a given standard series is cheaper for a given region, which is abiding to the geographic proximity and the data residency laws, etc., then maybe we choose that particular Azure region where the price is lesser. So these are some of the factors that we consider while choosing an Azure region. Let us do a quick demo and understand some of these things. The first quick demo we will do is understand from this link the different geographies, regions and data centers. As well as second demo we will do is set up an Azure policy in order to test the data residency feature of Azure. So let's go to this link as our first demo. So if you see here, Azure geographies, we have primarily four geographies: Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific, and MEA. So in Americas, we have these multiple regions: Central US, East US, two South Central US, West US are few of them. There are some government clouds in these regions as well. And you have Canada regions, Brazil regions, and Mexico regions. So all of them fall under Americas. Now, with respect to data residency and sovereignty, the data is stored at rest in US for the United States regions, whereas for the Azure government, a separate offering where a physically isolated instance of Microsoft Azure is used, but the data center resides in the US itself. For the Canada regions, the data centers or the regions are present in Canada. And for the Brazil, the data replication is done to US, and for Mexico, it is stored in Mexico. So this is about the geographies. And as I was mentioning that not all products are available in all the regions. Let us say that I select a product called a virtual machine. So if you see here, it says generally available in preview and in preview with an expected time frame and future availability. For example, if I have to select a DAV4 series for Canada, it may not be available. If I really have to select this particular series, then I'll have to go with East US or East US 2 region. So this particular table will show you what are the different products and the availability per region. Okay. And Azure regions itself, if you see here that there the blue dots are available regions and the dotted circles are the announced regions. For example, here in Israel Central and Qatar Central, they are announced regions. And availability zones, we will be dealing with this in the next session, so keep that parked for the moment. And there are three Azure government secret regions also, but their locations are not disclosed. So this particular link is very handy in case you want to basically make a selection of which Azure region to be used for creating a particular Azure resource. Now, as part of our next demo, let us create an Azure policy to show the data residency feature of Azure. Let's open portal.azure.com. Here, search for resources and services and go to Azure policy. In the assignments section, let us create a new policy. The scope of the policy can be the subscription itself, or you can filter down to selecting a resource group. So let us say that I'm randomly selecting a resource group, which is a network watcher resource group. If you want to optionally exclude any resources from the policy assignment, you could do from here. The policy definition that I want is allowed locations. So if you see here, this is an out-of-the-box policy which enables us to restrict the locations your organization can specify while deploying the resources. So I'm going to select this built-in policy. I'm going to give that this is only East US specific policy. Allow only location. So I'm going to leave the rest as default and go ahead and create. So I actually have to allow specify the location. So I want to ensure that it is only East US. I can go for multiple selections as well, but this particular policy, I want to ensure that all the resources within that resource group are created only in the East US region. So I'm going to create it. So it has created successfully. Please note that this particular assignment takes around 30 minutes to take effect. And I'm going to fast forward it and show you how I cannot create a resource in this resource group for any other region other than East US. Alright, let us now try creating a resource for that particular resource group. Going to the Network Watcher resource group. In the overview section, I'm going to say add. Let us say that I want to add a storage account. I click on create. So I'm going to leave the default subscription and the resource group name. I'm going to give a name of the account. It cannot contain hyphens. So I'm going to select a region other than East US, and I'm going to leave the defaults. So I'm reviewing and creating. It's running a final validation, which in my opinion should fail. Yes, that is because this particular resource group has a policy which says that none of the resources should be created outside East US region. So the error details say that the East US specific policy, which is allowing only location, has failed. And the remediation for this particular issue is to ensure that I can create only in the East US region. So let's go back to the basics tab and select East US region, and let's now validate it. So this time the validation has passed. So Azure in this way supports a lot of other features for ensuring data residency and sovereignty. So we have reached to the end of today's session, where we have understood what is a data center, region, and geography. The next topic is also very important, which is availability zones, availability set, and region pairs. So please stay tuned, and in case of any feedback, please feel free to leave your comments. Thank you so much.